today's episode of On the Ropes with Josh Shernoff, I sit down with the Blue Meanie. Later, I shine a future star spotlight on Royal Money. But right now, ECW legend, the Blue Meanie, is on the ropes. Blue Meanie, thank you so much for taking the time to be here on the ropes.
Oh, well, I'm honored you asked me. I mean, you're a busy man, so I see you all over the world and talking to all these people, so to talk to little old me, I'm happy.
Popping up everywhere.
Yes, man.
I want to get right into it. Obviously, we're here. We're backstage, the 2300 Arena. You are no stranger to this building.
No.
What does this building mean to you? After all of the years you've been in the business, all of the buildings that you have wrestled in, does this one still hold a special place in your heart?
Absolutely. I had so many good experiences here, but I learned so much in this building. So it's one part college, one part church for me. It's like there's a lot of really cool things that happened here. I
don't know that anyone has ever likened the ECW arena to church, so I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
But in any of the stories I've ever heard, but
not the traditional kind,
right?
the Dave Koresh kind. So the cultish kind where we just make stuff up on the fly. But no, seriously. Obviously, I'm from South Philly. I live in South Philly. I pass this building every day, and I've been here for every version of it, from when it was the Viking Hall to the new Alhambra to when it was simply just the arena. Mm-hmm. Now it's 2300 Arena. And I love it, man. I was just talking to my tag partner, Nova, the other day. And he's like, think about it, man. We've wrestled in this building in the 90s, in the 2000s, the 2010s, and now we're here at the 2020s.
That's incredible.
It's four decades. You know?
For a guy who's not even 30 yet to be able to have wrestled for 4 decades.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible. Although today you decided to color your hair white as opposed to blue.
Yeah, this is
covering over the actual blue.
Oh yeah, you got to throw people off. I'm in Clark Kent mode right now, so
Going back to the beginning, you post some pictures on social media that I love to see. They're pictures of you as a fan, just meeting some of your heroes, and it's always really cool to see. You have a great mullet sometimes going on. It's really
the Bobby Eaton special.
Yeah, right. At what point in your life did you say, I'm going to be a professional wrestler?
I've always wanted to be one since I saw my first match in 1982. I never really officially said it out loud, but it was just a feeling. I think I'm a true believer. If you can visualize yourself doing something, then there's a good chance you could probably do it. I always visualize myself as a wrestler or being in the business somehow. My family would take a trip from Philadelphia to Atlantic City. On that bus ride, I was pretending I was making towns and stuff like that, and doing pretend interviews in my head and all that stuff. So when it came to training and all that stuff with Al, I kind of took to it like a fish to water, because I had this fantasy world in my head of professional wrestling and what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be. I didn't know I was going to be the Blue Me, but I knew I was going to do something. And
that's something I wanted to ask you. What was because obviously you became a character that is iconic in this business now, and just visually iconic even, right? You have T-shirts and pins and everything.
My tchotchkes.
Yeah, you have all of your stuff that's not even it's not even an actual picture of you. Sometimes it's just the glasses and the hair, something. It's really that iconic look, but I'm assuming, like you said, you didn't think you were going to be the Blue Meanie. No. What did you have when you were making towns in the family car? What did you have in your mind of who you were going to? Because I think everybody, if you were ever a wrestling fan, even if you never intended to be a professional wrestler, you had that character in your mind, that main event character that you were going to be.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I said, making the towns with my family on family trips. I always envisioned myself as a tag team wrestler because I love tag teams and stuff. I love the British Bulldogs. I love the Rock and Roll Express, all that good stuff. And then when I was a kid, when camcorders became a thing, I would do my own promos in front of the family video camera. And if I was shaving, I would be standing there, practicing wrestling promos while I'm shaving. My grandma thinks I'm just talking to myself. She thinks maybe Brian has an imaginary friend I don't know about or whatever. But I was always thinking of something, always doing. I always wanted to be like a Bobby Eaton type. That's, like I said, I grew the mullet out in his honor. But I always wanted to just be the guy that, you could plug in anywhere, stuff like that. But luckily, Raven saw me, and Raven saw the Blue Meanie character in me because he, he was a big fan of the Beatles and the Yellow Submarine and all that stuff. And with the stuff I was doing at the time, I was kind of like a comedy wrestler because growing up, I loved pro wrestling, I loved stand-up comedy. And I always try to include something where, I would make myself look like the fool as the heel. I would always do something like, trip and fall on my face. And, I always wanted, the biggest thrill I could do is either pop a crowd or make somebody laugh. So if I could do both at once, it's like the chocolate and the peanut butter with the Reese cups, you know what I'm saying? But this, you always try, I shouldn't even have been here growing up. I was severe asthmatic and stuff like that. So to get the opportunity and to get the attention of, being trained by Al Snow and then getting the opportunity, the attention of Raven and Stevie Richards and then Paul Heyman and being allowed into their world, it was one of the greatest, learning experiences. Like I said, I learned so much in this building, that, you can't really even put a dollar amount on, the stuff I've learned here, So
obviously your time in ECW and all the things that you've done in professional wrestling, you were in the WWF. Did that come as a surprise to you? And I don't mean that can definitely seem backhanded. No. But did it come as a surprise to you because at the time the WWF, everyone, it was these giant bodybuilding, and they were kind of phasing out a lot of that comedy stuff that they had done. They were going more edgy. Now, of course, ECW, you've got that edge going on. What was it like going in there? Where did you think your place was going to be in the WWF?
Like you said, I could have been like a decade too late, in some aspects. Where
it's certainly not for a lack of talent, you were there. No, but it was that Attitude Era time. Yeah. And here's, and you were with Goldust, and that definitely went with that. But yeah, I'm curious.
Well, when you try to put on an event, you try to put a little bit of everything. Think of an event as like a buffet or a bowl of Chex Mix. You might not like the peanuts, but you like the pretzels. If you like the pretzels, like the cereal. You got to have a little bit of everything. You can't have 9 or 10 matches as the exact same match, because if you do, you could leave after match 2. So where I fit in, I think I came in. My role in this business was to break up. There's peaks and valleys. Intense. Okay, let's lighten the mood up a little bit. Here comes the Blue Meanie. Here comes Steve Richards. Here comes Supernova, the BWO. And we brought a little bit of levity where people could take a breather from the chairs, everything, the plunder. Now, when it came to go to the WWE, they had a little bit of the edginess, but I still think there's a way I could have fit in that same role, and it was a competitive situation in WWE where there'd be plenty of times, and this isn't a complaint, it's just it was the state of the business, where I'd be in gorilla position at Raw, and they go, "Oh, if somebody went too long, your segment got cut." I would, and there's plenty of times where I got to go out there and stuff like that. I initially was going to go to WWE because Vince Russo wanted me to be a parody of the Nitro Girls. I was going to be the Raw boy, and eventually we got to do it, and to further the feud with me and Goldust. But I always thought I could bring something different to the business. I wasn't the guy with the abs. I wasn't the guy, most muscular. I did some of the flips.
Don't sell yourself short there.
I was always
You're quite athletic in that regard.
I was always influenced by the Bam Bam Biglows and stuff like that. And thank God I got to share a locker room with him, and he was kind enough to share some advice with me for being an agile big guy and stuff like that. So I always tried to bring that side of it and just be a little bit something different, and entertain. I always look to entertain no matter what I'm doing, whether it's in the ring, on social media, or just amongst friends. If I can make one person laugh, I've won.
Still to come, part 2 of my sit-down interview with the Blue Meanie. But when we return, I'll shine a future star spotlight on Royal Money. We'll be right back. Tonight, I want to talk about one coach in particular. I'm talking about Jerry Lynn, seen here not being seen here. The match everyone was talking about was The Undertaker versus Goldberg. It was like 1,000 degrees, and it is a well-known fact that the elderly should not be outside in extreme heat. All right, I'm sitting here now with a man who goes by the name of Royal Money. Could you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Tyrone Madrid. I'm from Camden, New Jersey. I'm 34 years old. I've been wrestling for about 7 years, and I'm enjoying the time.
And you've been wrestling at the Monster Factory. You trained at the Monster Factory.
Correct. Yes.
Who did you train under?
When I first came in, it was Larry Sharp and Danny Cage, and Larry Sharp was pretty much passing the reins over to Danny Cage, and then it was Wild Bill. He went by Bill as Wesley in ECW. Blue Meanie, QT Marshall, Punishment Martinez, but he's Damian Priest now in WWE. Right. And just a whole bunch of guys came in as far as seminars and So I've done at the factory. I've done probably like 300 seminars.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
300 seminars.
So, and this is the fun part for me to interview people for this segment on the show, because you are clearly not somebody who, I just went in the ring for the first time yesterday. You are well versed in this business. Mm-hmm. What was the first thing that made you say, I want to be a professional wrestler?
Well, my grandma and my grandfather is the reason why I'm in this business today. And Chuck Norris has something to do with that, too.
Chuck Norris has something to do with a lot of things, I believe. Yeah,
I just tweeted him thanking him the other day. So,
well, tell us about it.
My grandfather always wanted to be a wrestler, but he was a bishop of a church, so he didn't have time to do it. So when he passed in 2002, that was my way to pay homage to him. I was like, I'll pursue that career that he wanted. But back in the day, when I was a kid, we used to watch an hour of Walker, Texas Ranger, and then wrestling would come on. So that first hour I would spend with my grandma, and then we would all watch wrestling together. So when Chuck Norris kicked Jeff Jarrett in the '94 Survivor Series, I don't know why it wasn't a wrestler that was like, you know what, I could do this. It was Chuck Norris. And literally, because I seen him on TV acting, and then I seen him come to wrestling, it's like he did the same kick they did on TV. Yeah. It's like, I want to be a wrestler. So I was into music growing up. I'm a drummer or whatever, and that's my first love. So did all the stuff in music I wanted to do, and then I kind of lost myself when my grandfather passed. That's my only father figure. So when he passed, I was like, you know what, I'll pay homage to him and pursue this career. And I had a best friend who also lost his life, who was supposed to be my tag team partner. God rest his soul. We were supposed to be TNT. His name was Tali. My name is Tyrone. So it was like so corny. But for those two reasons was the reason I got into the business. And the third reason was I had something to add to the business. I wouldn't have never got into the business if I didn't have anything to add. But I felt like I had something to add to the business. And now 7 years later, I'm still, as hungry as I was the first day coming into the Monster Factory.
So how long did you train?
I've been training 7 years.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Yeah. You're always training.
I'm always training.
But how long until you had your first match, we'll say?
I was ready probably about 4 months of training. But Danny Cage is like a mastermind, and he kept telling me, we kept looking at, I remember one day we was looking at the flyer, and it was like this Rumble coming up. And he's like, man, you gonna be in that or whatever. And I'm like, oh man, I can't wait. So the show came along, and it went. And I was listening on the show, and I'm like, what? I was still collecting tickets. So I'm like, man, he said I was gonna be on the show. This guy's a liar. So a year passed, and I'm still not on the show. And there's guys who came in after me that was on the show, and I feel like he was just trying to find a way to, a lot of things happen in this business, and people act out of character. He was trying to find a way to get under my skin, and it was just like
to test you,
to
see how you were going to react to this.
Yeah, and I was like, well, I guess it's not my time. And then it made sense later because he always said supporting roles and main characters. Like sometimes you're not the main character, you got to be the supporting role, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess collecting these tickets is the supporting role. And I was like, I remember, because now in the factory we have a ramp that says watch your step, but I remember just talking to every person and saying, hey, how's it going? Watch your step. And I would take their ticket and I would rip their ticket. So I became familiar with the people at the door, and then later I finally got on the show because somebody didn't show up. And I'll never forget the first day because Larry Sharp was there. He just randomly popped up.
Oh, wow.
And we came out and we'd like interrupt the show, and he was like, man, somebody need to teach these guys a lesson. So it was like, man, we got this guy who's been working in the business for 40 plus years. Like, we worked him. Like, he thought we was very disrespectful and everything.
Wow.
So it's been, you know, a fun ride since then.
That's incredible. You had an opportunity. You and I have run into each other a number of times. For a number of different promotions. Right now, as we film this, we're backstage at an MLW, but we've seen each other backstage at AEW as well. What has that been like for you? You've had this opportunity that so many people prior to getting to work for those companies maybe haven't had that experience. Do you think you've gained a lot from the experience of being able to be behind the scenes at these larger shows?
Yes, well, at the factory we trained to prepare, something Meanie, Wild Bill, Punisher Martinez, Damian Priest, QT, they was always, even though we're wrestling in smaller venues, they always say wrestle for the bigger venues. So I've been wrestling in smaller venues, but I've always been wrestling like it was a big arena. And just going to see how those guys work with more cameras, it's like, it's really not far off than what I'm doing with just 3 cameras or one camera. It's just a bigger stage. It's like kind of like playing in high school football, and then you go play in like the Eagle Stadium. It's like, oh my God, you look at the size, and it's like, it's still 100 yards.
But when you first snap that ball, now you're just playing.
And it's like getting to see that and seeing that these guys are not doing nothing much different than what I'm doing. It's just, they just got to the dance a little bit sooner, and it's just, my time is, you know what I mean, right around the corner.
So what are you doing to get that, to make that happen? So right now, obviously, I'd assume you're not making a living off of professional wrestling. So what do you do? Mike Weber at Fight TV loves to say, what's your shoot job?
I actually work at Amazon. I just started there not too long ago. It's pretty cool. Everybody, like a lot of people say, oh my God, Amazon works you so hard. They're just lazy people. It's just constant movement. But like my first love is music. I still do that. My grandmom just passed away a year ago, just a couple of days, January 26th. So I have all this knowledge with music, and I like completely gave it up for wrestling. And it was like, people are like, oh my God, you're stupid. Like, why? And I'm like, man, I'm pursuing this dream. But I got into music because of my grandmom. And it was like, now, like, just a few days, you know what I mean, it's been a year, and people like hit me up like, hey man, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. My grandma was a Christian, so she believed in God. So I feel like she got her angel's wings. So I would want her here, but I'm happy she made it. She got her wings. So instead of being sad, I was like, I'll get back into music and start making beats again and stuff like that. All this knowledge that I've been had that I just decided not to use. And so I'm working at Amazon now. And I still play the drums, and now I'm making beats for rappers, sucky rappers right now, just to get my name out there. And then you know
what? and that's the nature of it. Whether it's music, whether it's the wrestling industry, whatever it is, you have to pay your dues. And that time, like you talked about, you know, one day you were just kind of brought in. I've talked to other people where they say, I ask, what was your big break? Oh, well, I just happened to have been there, and this guy didn't show up.
I'll go all out for an opportunity, like. This is a dream that I'm pursuing, like to go to AEW to do extra work. I sold my car.
Did you really?
Yeah, I sold my car to get there. Wow. And it was like, we have nothing for you. But then I got the chance to take merch to the back, and I'm back there playing with Chris Jericho's jacket. And I got a chance to mark out. And I was like, oh my God, Kenny Omega's the one wing angel. Like, it was crazy.
But you know what? It's really interesting that you said that, because there's so many aspects of it where people talk about, you know, nowadays it's so easy, the performance center and stuff, and it's so much easier. In a lot of ways, it really is easier to break into the business today than it was 30 years ago, right? But you sold your car to be able to go there. If that doesn't show determination and passion and the will to do this, I don't know what does. What is you talked about some of your motivations, obviously family and whatnot, but what is that thing, what is that drive, what is that thing that tells you in your head, I'm going to keep doing this, and what is it that you're doing on a day-to-day basis to get where it is that you want to be?
Well, I hear, like, I feel like losing my grandma was the perfect thing to happen to me. Granted, I'd rather her be here, but I get a chance to live everything that she taught me. And I can always hear my grandma saying, you started this, now you got to see it all the way through. And I'm like, I can't quit. Like literally a couple of days before my grandma passed away, she was in ICU, and I went there to see her. And I'm like, I'll drop anything for my grandma. And I'm like, I was supposed to go to a show the next day, which was I went to go see her on a Thursday. I was supposed to go to wrestle the next day. And I was like, nah, I'm staying here. I'm not going. And she literally told me to go kick ass. And I was like, man, like literally seeing my grandma like this, and she's still telling me to go. And it's like, for that reason, I can't stop. Granted, I would want her to be here to see, the fruits of my labor, but she won't, but I just got to keep going for her, because I can always hear that in the back of my head. And I'm just not a quitter. If I continue to wrestle and never make it, I'm fine with that. Because a lot of people don't go for their dreams. And it's a lot of people who still talk to me now like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that wrestling. You shouldn't be doing this. And it's like, man, whatever. You're still working that job, mad, going to go drink on the weekend because that's all you live life. I'm not trying to do that.
No matter what, at the end of the day, you're going to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I went out there to live my dream.
Right.
And that's
no
something
regrets.
that's huge. And I hope for a lot of success for you. I think you have a good head on your shoulders, and you got an angel looking over that shoulder. So
two
I think two of them. Yeah. So I think I wish you nothing but the best, and hopefully our fans that are watching this are going to just be able to look back and say, hey, I remember when we saw him in that interview, now look at him. So wishing you continued success. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, man.
When we return, part 2 of my interview with the Blue Meanie. We'll be right back. Tonight, I want to talk about one coach in particular. I'm talking about Jerry Lynn, seen here, not being seen here. The match everyone was talking about was The Undertaker versus Goldberg. It was like 1,000 degrees, and it is a well-known fact that the elderly should not be outside in extreme heat. I wanted to know some of the challenges that maybe you had in the business. You talked about asthma.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge right out of the gate.
Yeah.
But outside of that, what were some other challenges that maybe you had in the business? Something that might stand out to you as one of the more challenging moments that you maybe questioned, hey, is this right for me? Should I be here? After years of, as a fan, wanting to be in the business, was there a moment at any point where you kind of thought that to yourself, and then how did you get past that?
I guess one of the most challenging thing is, everybody in the business, they put their years in, they go, well, I paid my dues, right? Mm-hmm. Not only do the wrestlers pay the dues, but the families pay the dues. Mm-hmm. And while I was pursuing my goal as a professional wrestler, I was being supported by my grandparents and my mom. And then when I was at wrestling school, my grandfather took ill. He had a condition with asbestosis from working at a chemical plant. And my first month into the training, my grandma calls and says, Grandpa's sick. But he says, don't come home. Stay there. He wanted me to pursue my dream. So I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and my grandfather's, slowly passing away from cancer. And I made a point to go back home and all that stuff. But it's just like, when, family suffers and stuff like that. My pop passed away, so then it was me, my mom, and my grandmom. And then, they're still helping me fit the bill, with the bills and all that stuff. And there's times where I was like, man, I should probably, because I was working, wrestling 3 or 4 days a week. So, man, in the beginning of the wrestling business, you're not making that much.
Sure.
But I got to the point where I was like, man, should I get, maybe I should, get into the real world and get a real job. And then luckily I got the call for WWE, and Alex Snow called me, brought up the idea of me joining the job squad. They said they were going to. I was like, absolutely. Are you under the contract at the ECW? No. You want to be in WWE? Yes. He called Bruce Pritchard. Bruce Pritchard called me. Bruce said, hey, you can be at TVs on Sunday. And after I hang up with Bruce Pritchard, I go in the room, I tell my mom and my grandmom, put all the bills in my name.
Wow.
They're like, why? I was like, I'm going to WWE. And my grandmom's knees buckled. No matter what she wanted, bills, or it took all her medicines, everything. She'd have to pick up for anything. Anything.
I was going to ask you what one of the best moments was. So I'm going to say, what was one of the best moments in your career outside of that? Because I think in your life, that had to have been. I mean, that for me, like that's an emotional thing just to hear.
Yeah.
And that's
100%.
I think that also speaks to you and your family for you to do something like that. But let's say as a wrestler, what was a moment that really stands out to you where you stood in the ring, or you maybe stood backstage, or whatever it was, and you said, "This is why I'm here. This is why I chose this. Like it was all worth it because of this moment here."
It just, I think having my first and only, unfortunately, my only WrestleMania moment being my hometown of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where in the city where I was born, I debuted for ECW in Philadelphia, debuted for WWE in Philadelphia, and got to have my WrestleMania moment in Philadelphia. But and then we had WrestleMania in Philadelphia, and then we had a house show at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia. And I brought my mom, my grandma, my aunt, my uncle. We all came to a show, and we're leaving. And there's that ramp at the Wells Fargo Center where everybody goes down. But up above, there's a fence, and there's fans yelling to various wrestlers. So we're about to leave, and my uncle goes up to get the car, drives down, and we're standing there. Everybody goes, "Boo Meanie, boo Meanie." I go, "Give it up for Grandma." And I point to my grandma, and everybody goes, "Grandma, Grandma." And she starts waving like she's the queen. She's like, "Oh, hi." She waves her cane, and she paid she's the reason why I'm here. My mom is ultimately here too, but my grandma, think of a wheel. My grandma was the cog in the wheel, and we were all the spokes, and she kept the family going. So for her to get that little bit of an acknowledgement, and
that's awesome.
For her to get a pop, that was where I was like, that was worth it. That's
awesome. At this point in your career, like we talked about before, you've accomplished so much. What motivates you now, aside from like everybody likes to go get paid to go do a job somewhere, but aside from any of that, what is it that really motivates you to still get in the ring, to still do everything that you do all over? I mean, you've worked for so many different promotions. What would you say your big motivation is?
I still love what I do, but I've finally learned that sometimes you got to say no. I only have so much room on my bump card left, so I try to work smarter. I mean, you always try to work hard. You always want to give a good showing, but you try to work smarter. And if you get a chance to pass off some knowledge onto the next generation, I try to do that as well. If I watch a show or stuff like that, because I did some time at the Monster Factory. I still go back here and there, trying to pass on not only things I've learned, but the mistakes I made. Hey, I did this, and I've done that. Maybe don't do that, But to do events, do shows, it's mostly about, trying to do what's best for it's not about the quantity, it's the quality of events and stuff like that. You got an event like MLW, they're a quality promotion. There's a lot of good quality independents out there and stuff like that. So you just try not to spread yourself too thin to where it becomes a grind and you start regretting it. Do it to a point where you can still cherish doing events like this, or doing conventions, because I treat these of things like mini high school reunions where you get to see people that you normally don't get to see, and I still want to go out there. I still want to have the most entertaining match on the card, but I try to do it smartly, and I try not to spread myself too thin to where I just start resenting the business. I don't want to ever resent the business, but I always want to, work smarter.
I wanted to ask you one last thing here. There was something I saw recently. You talking about the JBL incident that had happened, and someone had brought it up, and you were very quick to kind of just be like, "This was a long time ago. Let's kind of move on from it." Or you? I know you've set the record straight like so many times before. Do you ever look at something like that and think to yourself, I don't like being attached to the quote unquote, behind the scenes, the drama, the politics, all the things like that, where people want to kind of put you into that? Do you enjoy more the fact that people, when they think the Blue Meanie, they just think fun, like happy, good time? And is something like that, when that type of thing does come up, is that something that you want to clear the air on very quickly just because you want to get along with everybody? Or is it something you want to clear the air because you understand that's just an aspect of the business?
I appreciate people. Like, there's a part of that situation I appreciate because people took, there's a good majority took to my side of the thing. And I realized, how many, if people didn't care, they wouldn't have rooted for me in this situation. But then there's like there's still a small minority out there that want to use that as a weapon to attack me, whether it's anonymously or with a burner account on Twitter or whatever, or being real cowardly about it. But like, I try not to dwell on the bad things. If the situation sucked, because that event as a whole was such an awesome experience, and I still don't let that moment take away from it, because it was still such an awesome moment, awesome show, event. It's over. It's done with. Me and John, we made amends. He apologized, and then he actually went. JBL actually went out of his way years after, like when the Royal Rumble was in Philly. I was almost in the Royal Rumble the 2 Rumbles ago in Philly, and it was down between me and Bubba Ray Dudley, and they chose Bubba, which cool.
Sure, yeah.
I can't be mad. I was honored that my name was in the mix, but people, and I appreciate people want to, Meanie, you were wronged. I appreciate that, but I try not to dwell on it because it's over and done with. It is what it is, and me and John are cool and all that stuff. So, if I can talk about the positives of wrestling and stuff like that, and make people happy.
What is what's the legacy you want to leave in this business? Because I still think you've got some more stuff. You talked about your bump card only having a few openings left there, but I still think there are more, like tonight, for instance. There are more memories that you're going to make. But what is the legacy that you want to leave on the wrestling business?
That I love the wrestling business with everything I had. It owed me nothing. It gave me everything. It gave me so many great opportunities. And I shouldn't have made a dime in this business. And I made a decent living. I didn't make $1 million, but I got paid royally in experience and good friendships and good experiences. And I made a lot of friendships outside the wrestling business because of the business. I'm with Mrs. Meanie because of the wrestling business. I got to give my grandmom the best last 2 years of her life because of the wrestling business. And the same with my mom. When my mom passed away, we had an issue with the insurance company. They shortchanged us, and the wrestling fans reached out and they paid for my mom's funeral. So, I mean, the wrestling business, the wrestling fans have treated me better than I think I should have. I deserve to be treated. I mean, like I said, the wrestling business owes you nothing, but I got something out of it. And if I can go forward, and I'd love to become a producer of some sorts. If I could go behind the scenes and help be a muse with somebody, or continue to give back. I know my time in the ring will eventually be up, but if I could do something behind the scenes, I would absolutely love to give what I learned and be a muse to somebody down the line and help continue to give to the business that gave me so much.
Well, I hope that does happen, and I can speak as a longtime wrestling fan. I think you earned every single bit of what the wrestling business and what the fans have given to you.
Oh, so, thank you so much.
Thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate you being here on the show.
And I got a good friendship out of the wrestling business with you. So
happy to know you, man.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Thank you to my guests. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Join us again next time for another edition of On the Ropes with Josh Shernoff.